Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Operators Weekly Roundup, where I, Gunjan, Saha, and Roshan will be discussing some of the key highlights from the Indian startup ecosystem from the past week. Roshan, this has been a great weekend, and the IPL just started, so that's like a few weeks of solid entertainment.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't really watched a match still, but some interesting developments, right? I mean, Dhoni moving out for Jadeja and
Yeah.
CSK, and of course, RCB without Virat as captain this season. So yeah, looking forward to a fantastic season. I won't say the tagline that usually RCB fans say and then regret later. So we're gonna leave it at that. Yeah.
Right. But who would be your like top two picks, top two, three picks of this season?
CSK as usual, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
Right? And yeah, I don't want to say the other team. Just
Let's not jinx it, right?
yeah, let's not jinx it.
All right. So it has been a really interesting week. Last roundup we discussed how Zomato is acquiring Blinkit, and recently they announced that they will become India's first food delivery app that delivers food within 10 minutes, right? Now, we have seen in Twitter how a lot of initiatives like this come into the backlash, right? With concerns about, the rider's safety and everything. But do you think this is setting some sort of precedence in the ecosystem with 10-minute deliveries actually becoming the norm?
Yeah, see, with all of these new services, I say the same thing, right? You don't know you want it until you have it. A lot of people would mock services like Dunzo back in the day. They would mock Zepto back in the day as well, right? Not too long ago as well. But I mean, today, I mean, it's fairly common, right? And in fact, the game has changed. And people are rightly concerned about partner safety and everything, right? I mean, you don't want people like dashing from one location to another just to earn that additional incentive, or worse, I mean, to avoid any punitive action from Zomato or any other platform as such, right? But I think Deepinder Goel put out a nice clarification on that, saying that
Correct.
limiting it to certain outlets and certain kinds of foods,
Yeah.
very, very standardized, and the partners will not be informed if it's a 10 or a 30-minute delivery and so on, right?
That's
I
right.
think those checks and balances are there. One thing is that, for the amount of time Zomato has been in the news over the last 10, 15 years of their journey, their communication has been on point. I mean, their communication on social media in general, etc., right? I mean, across various controversies and so on. So I really feel that this is classic capitalism, right? I mean, if there is some kind of a need, I mean, it will get validated through demand, and this is it is what it is, right? So if people don't really need something in 10 minutes, and I guess then we'll see that it'll get phased out. But I have a feeling that this thing is going to be a hit for
Right.
sure, right? I mean, people rushing someplace in about 15-20 minutes or whatever can use a 10-minute delivery of stuff like this, right? And we're talking about bread and omelette, chai, poha, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait half an hour or 45 minutes for stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that there are enough checks and balances to ensure safety and standards and so on are maintained. But yeah, a lot of hot reaction on Twitter. But I mean, Twitter is that, right? Twitter
Yeah.
is very reactive to anything and everything. So yeah.
I mean, look at even when Dunzo was started this whole 10-minute delivery, it came under a lot of backlash. But then when Zepto came and actually marketed it, right, that hey, now you're gonna get groceries delivered in your house within 10 minutes, that actually set the tone. Right, the whole quick service is coming into play,
Yeah.
and from a business standpoint as well, it kind of makes sense for operators in this space, as they'll be now able to offer more deliveries for partners,
Yeah.
right, which kind of has its own effects.
Very interesting point also is that this is all so that they can charge a premium basically,
Okay.
right? I mean, they're not going to be giving the 10-minute delivery at the same rate. Blinkit does the same thing, subscription services, and I think Zepto also has similar offerings as well, right? We spoke last roundup about the fact that Zomato wants to increase its average order value or ticket size,
Mhm.
right? Because it has hit a certain stagnation in the core business, so they're trying to creatively increase that, order value from, 250 to 400 to beyond that, right? What next and what next? So they have to try a bunch of things, right? Newer products, newer services, and so on. And this is a step in that direction. And I think they might also have been, encouraged by the whole 10-minute grocery delivery thing, right? With the Blinkit acquisition and
Right.
so on. So if they are optimizing their fleet for the 10-minute delivery of grocery, then, restaurant seems like the next logical step.
Right. Yeah. So it has also been a very busy week for the folks at Ola, right? They have also been in the headlines with their investment in StoreDot, right, which is an Israel-based battery tech company that promises to charge your EV batteries in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
phenomenal.
like faster than charging the mobile phones that we use nowadays.
Yeah.
And along with that, Ola has also reached an agreement to acquire Avail Finance, which is the NBFC set up by Bhavish's brother. And but last year, Avail Finance was a lot in the news for laying off its employees as the lending business struggled during the pandemic. And now with this acquisition happening, right, within family members, it has raised a lot of concerns and has also triggered an independent audit. So let's get your views on both of these news.
Yeah, it is a little odd, but I suppose the auditors will look into these issues, right? I mean, so Avail Finance, the business seems very complementary to what Ola does anyway, right? I mean, because Avail Finance is in this loans for blue collar workers and
Right.
so on, right? And considering that drivers, which are a key component of Ola's business, come under that category, I mean, it seems very symbiotic. I mean, they're catering to the same base, and we've often discussed, how underserved that segment of India is, right, in terms of credit. And so credit access, anything to improve credit access is usually good. So they have a very simplified process of taking these loans for 5,000 bucks or 10,000 bucks, maybe like a month end crunch, maybe a sudden unexpected expense and so on, right? So see, when you're living a middle class life, I mean, you don't quite realize, right? I mean, but if you're living month on month, hand to mouth, then it's very difficult, you know, let's say like a traffic fine violation, for
Mhm.
instance, right? In the case of a driver, it could set him back a great deal, right? So stuff like this certainly helps, and StoreDot is really, really interesting. I was
Yeah.
looking at their website, I did a bit of reading up on their founders and everything. Phenomenal, man. I mean, 5 minutes,
It's
that's it.
and they're not stopping there. I was reading an article where the current R&D
Yeah.
is focused on 0 to 100% charge in less than 2 minutes. That's like
Wow.
faster than I can make Maggie.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean
Imagine that.
that's like a 10-year mission or
Yes,
something of
yeah.
that sort, vision or something, right? Yeah, I mean it's pretty remarkable, with this whole EV adoption. I mean, what we've often said is that the people who are waiting, like me, are only waiting to see the service, maintenance, and so on, right? And
Hmm.
charging infrastructure and those things are a key component of this wait and watch section of the demographic as such. And stuff like this will just make it a lot more seamless to adopt, right? Because 5 minutes is, I mean, it's almost comparable to a diesel or petrol
Right.
fuel up, right? So pretty remarkable, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that they have availed the exclusive manufacturing rights of these batteries in
Yeah.
India. So now, as the EV ecosystem is growing, I'm sure this puts them at certain vantage point
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, moving on, India has always remained a hotbed for fintechs, right? The fintechs that were innovated in India, they spread to Southeast Asia, and now it's also spreading in US. And it's very good to see that the RBI is also actually taking a part in it. So, nearly 1.5 years after announcing it in August 2020, the governor of RBI, Mr. Shaktikanta Das, inaugurated the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub in Bangalore. This aims to promote and facilitate environment that accelerates innovation across financial centers. And given that it's a government body, it will also be trying to solve for multiple problem statements across the country, right? And they'll also identify and mentor startups, to help connect them with the ecosystem, give them sandboxes. So, do you think? I mean, are we anywhere close towards slowing down enough fintech innovation with developments like
No,
this?
this is in fact doing the opposite, right? I mean, I often say that regulatory infrastructure, especially on the fintech side in India, is like eons ahead of anywhere else in the world, right? India is rightly, I think, the fintech capital of the world. You look at UPI, for example, right? I mean, we don't talk about it as much because it
Mm.
got repetitive that every month
Yeah.
we're breaking records in terms of transaction volume and so on. But it was because of an NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India
Mm.
sandbox, right? I mean, that's how it came about. And that has had fantastic adoption and it's been a game changer, right? Especially in this post-COVID sort of a
Right.
world that we're living in, where, welfare services, all of that has to be delivered to people. And this RBI Innovation Hub has a very ambitious aim. So what they're saying is, and rightly so, they're saying that no one person in the ecosystem or no one entity can solve for the broader challenges of inclusion and so on, right? I mean, neither the fintechs nor the banking institutions nor the government or whoever, they're trying to build all of these people. They're trying to bring all of these people together on a single platform, and create like a regulatory sandbox so people can, hash out ideas, work on new innovation and things like that, right? So see, this whole formalization of the economy, whether with the Jam Trinity or GST and so on, right? It's got like a huge compounding effect, like a severe compounding effect, right? And it's long, long due, especially for a country which has got such a huge informal economy,
Right.
at least up until recently. So yeah, I mean, this is phenomenal. I mean, it's if anything, policymakers across the world should take notes from this,
Yeah.
right? And RBI has been, I mean, phenomenal
Yeah,
anyway,
they
right?
have set up an independent board with Mr. Senapati Gopalakrishnan, or Chris, who was the co-founder and former chairman of Infosys,
Yeah.
right? So with
The board of directors has some really eminent people. So I mean, they definitely mean business,
Right.
right? They've gotten a good set of people together. I'm really, really excited for what's to come in terms of like, startups developing new innovation, and how, the financial institutions will also start working with.
There'll also be, I mean, we have discussed in the past roundups, right, where large enterprises are taking a keen interest in startup. Let's say for the likes of what we've seen with Hero and TVS investing in this mobility startups, right? And with this innovation hub for whatever startups that might come in the future,
Yeah.
their time to market a product or to test the product would also become much more seamless.
See, fintech in India, right? I mean, 12, 15 years back, I mean, people said fintech will kill banks. I mean, they were being really over enthusiastic about that and stupidly optimistic. But in fact, what has happened in a very nice way is that there's been a greater cooperation between banking institutions and fintechs, right? Whether it's the payment providers or the service guys, and that is the way out. That is the way forward, really. I mean, we've often said that the fintechs or the neobanks will become the front end for banks as
Right.
such, right? And that is leveraging both sides of the equation, right? The fintechs are great at technology and great at customer experience. The banks are great at running the core business as such,
Right.
right? So this kind of stuff will just accelerate more of those kind of innovations
Yeah.
and partnerships.
True. Another news, Netcore, which is like India-based SaaS company, they have invested close to $100 million in acquiring a US-based e-commerce product discovery platform called Unboxed Inc. They empower 3.5% of all e-commerce site searches in the US, and they have over 150 clients already. They enable the need for multiple integrations, offering email marketing, merchandising, product recommendation, two search person in one platform. So that kind of makes Netcore kind of a all-in-one suite, right? And in the last 3 years, these guys have invested in three more companies. The first one being Quinto AI, which is a conversational AI platform, followed by Box AI, which is product recommendation, and Hansel.io, which is a product experience. So these guys are like taking probably in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll see e-commerce on the next level. So how do you picture that going?
So Netcore is 20 plus years old. Rajesh Jain is an old hand, perhaps the first rung of internet entrepreneurs India produced. Right? I mean, he had a bunch of these websites which were extremely popular during the first .com era as such. And Netcore has this whole marketing automation stack, right? I mean, they do everything from email to communication to customer engagement and experience and so on. So it's a very symbiotic fit in that sense, and they're spread across different industries as well. They're kind of like a software conglomerate in that sense, right? I mean, they have a very wide base of services and industries also that they target, right? With Unboxed, I mean, I think it's fairly clear, right? I mean, after COVID, e-commerce has probably jumped in many percentage points over what the usual growth was. Right. And this seemed like a very sort of symbiotic fit in that sense, right? Um, Search and recommendations are super, super critical in e-commerce, right? I mean, we often don't, go to a particular marketplace or a website knowing fully well what we want, right? So personalization, customization, understanding what people want and serving it to them, making sure that customer experience is properly stitched together. Those are very, very key core elements, and these are table stakes, right? I mean, if you're looking at like not competing, but if you're living with an Amazon or a Flipkart or whoever else, right, then that is de facto customer expectation, right? It doesn't matter if you are, a new brand or whatever.
You can't be like reinvent the entire thing. You have to have some sort of similarity with the things you're used to already.
people take it for granted, really. We're the most spoiled generation in that sense, right? I mean, we have all of these services completely tailored to us, and I see no compromise on that front. So Unboxed powers about 1,300 websites, right? And they're helping these brands with that API and everything to make sure that their website is up to mark. Right. So yeah, seems very interesting.
There's one thing I want to highlight here is that, see, with the whole lockdown, as you rightly mentioned it, e-commerce has seen such a tremendous rise. Now that is actually become such a habit that even for things which you wouldn't expect to buy online through an Amazon or Flipkart, people are used to that sort of an experience. Yeah. For example, look at buying an insurance, right? It's like buying a product of Amazon. We have all the items listed out, the benefits are listed out, reviews are there, and that's how we make our buying decisions. Yeah.
No, Amazon has defined e-commerce as such, right? I mean, yeah. So it's just de facto right now.
So also India's unicorn run continues to be impressive, having added two startups to the fold last week. One of them is Oxyzo Financial Services, which marked the first ever event of an Indian couple propelling their respective startups to unicorn status. We had Off Business, which is the parent company for Oxyzo, become a unicorn last year. And Oxyzo, with its $200 million Series A round, they crossed a 1 billion valuation mark.
Wow.
Imagine, in Series A.
Amazing. So we've spoken, of course, I mean, we've had Vasan Sridhar, who is the co-founder of Off Business, on the podcast earlier. That's a must listen for anyone who is interested in understanding this whole B2B commerce sector. And, the new breed of entrepreneurs that we're seeing, right? Whether it is a Bizongo or an Zetwork or a Off Business or even Resha Mandi and the likes. And we'll talk about Aqua Connect later. These guys are not content just doing the classical marketplace solution and connecting buyers and sellers, right? They've really taken this whole managed marketplace to such a level, really, that they're layering everything. They're layering marketplace with software and automation and financing.
Yeah.
And that makes it for a very compelling value proposition, right? And in the case of Off Business, I mean, I remember like talking to Vasant about this as well. They're looking at it completely from first principles, right? I mean, they have an NBFC license, I think, at this point. And, it's not a trivial problem, I mean, this whole risk analysis, mitigation and stuff. I mean, it's stuff that people have been practicing for decades now. And for a startup to look at this with fresh eyes and also look at a segment that is often ignored, right? Small and medium businesses in India are really starved of credit. The conventional banks and financial institutions make them jump through hoops and so on for them to even lend to those guys, if at all they lend. So it's a great story, really, and makes me very optimistic for what's to come.
So also retail e-commerce platform CommerceIQ, they closed a round of $115 million in Series D funding, which was led by institutional investors like Insight Partners, Trinity Ventures, Shasta Ventures, and Mendrona Venture Group. The total valuation also crossed $1 billion.
Yeah.
So this is another type of e-commerce innovation we are seeing in the past week. How do you think? I mean, what's happening?
So CommerceIQ is a very interesting journey, right? I mean, I knew them in their previous avatar as Boomerang Commerce. I remember maybe watching Guru Hariharan, who's the founder and CEO, pitch at TechCrunch Disrupt. I think it was 2013 or 2014, possibly, right? And I was simply blown away by their mission, which was to make every e-commerce company as smart as Amazon. So they're all Amazon and eBay guys, basically, their founding team. And they want to bring all of the data and algorithms and technology to bear for everyone. They want to basically democratize that. And they solve a very important problem, right? Which is that, look, in the offline distribution era, you had all of these buyers, right? I mean, let's say, you're selling mattresses or whatever. Now you would go and negotiate deals with, whoever else is the distributor in the city and multiple cities, etc., right? And that's a very staggered way of doing it. I mean, obviously, you maintain relationships, you give them a call once in a while, talk to them, etc., get a check on numbers, see what's going up, what's going down, etc., and negotiate, right? But what do you do in the age of algorithms, right? I mean, there's nobody at Amazon that you can really talk to in some sense. So who do you talk to in that sense? And there is like 100x or perhaps 1000x more data being generated in e-commerce compared to offline distribution. Right. So all of these brands, I mean, the bigger brand are really struggling to adapt to that, in terms of changing their pricing algorithms, maybe like, promotions and, products and so on, right? So what CommerceIQ does is it gives them the power of data in terms of like getting all of these disparate data sources together and helping them change these, whether it's pricing or promotions, very dynamically, right? So they can make the best use of it, and optimize their sales and profit margins. It's an amazing product premise. Actually, I was super excited earlier. I somehow forgot about them, and then very glad to see that they've become a unicorn.
Yeah. So a couple of other startups also raised funds last week. One of them being Plum, that had raised $35 million in a Series C round, which was led by A91 Partners. Existing investors included Unilever Ventures, and Fairing Capital also participated in the round. The funds will be used to accelerate product development and marketing activities. And Abhay Pandey, who is a general partner at A91 Partners, will be joining the board. AquaConnect, which you just spoke about, they raised $8 million from Trifecta Capital to strengthen its network of aqua partners. Now, aqua partners are franchise stores that give fish and shrimp farmers access to high quality inputs. And you mentioned that they're pioneering in the aquaculture sector, and it's digitizing the entire value chain, connecting farmers with input manufacturers and institutional buyers. So this story is very similar to what Resha Mandi is doing, but in a different space.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about Aqua Connect in a bit, but just to round things up with Plum, right? Very interesting business. I was kind of looking at the website and messaging and everything, and I was wondering, would such a company be able to like do 200 plus crores of revenue even 5 years back, right? Or maybe 6, 7 years back? Something that says, vegan, ethically sourced, and cruelty free, and so on, right? I mean, which means that the Indian consumer is maturing and the Indian consumer is starting to care about these things, right? Which opens up a whole other market for a lot of B2C brands and so on. And A91 has a couple of great companies in their portfolio, right? I mean, Paperboat and Sugar as well. So yeah, this is a very interesting sort of a fundraise. So aquaculture is it's a very tightly defined environment where they grow fish in these controlled parameters, right? Whether it's temperature, water, food for the animals, and so on, right? And they measure everything, and they optimize yield. Now, again, the fish and shrimp farming ecosystem in India, we spoke about it when we talked about Captain Fresh last roundup as well, right? It's a very fragmented, right? Many different stakeholders. And what Aqua Connect is trying to do is to streamline the operations, right? I mean, so they are, as Raj put it, I mean, they have boots on the ground and eyes in the sky, essentially. So they're helping these fish and shrimp farmers with data, with financing, connecting them to buyers, and offering multi-layered solutions, right? So it's like a full stack solution, and it's a very very interesting business. And of course, Raj spoke more about it on the podcast. We went into in depth of how the ecosystem is structured, who are the different stakeholders, priorities, and things to that effect. It's definitely worth checking out. Yeah.
So another trending topic in Twitter last week was Ola's electric scooter catching fire. And it was reported that it's because that the NMC cells are more prone to thermal runaway or spontaneous fires than LFP cells. But this is something that Ola will really need to figure out fast and like have a reliable solution.
Yeah, it was scary to kind of see it combust just almost spontaneously, right?
Yeah, you remember like when Tata Nano came out,
Yeah.
there's throughout the country nanos were
Yeah.
catching fire.
Yeah. No, there was a similar problem. And see, the thing is that automobile manufacturing is not like software, right? You can't just fail fast or ship and iterate. You can't do those things, and given the breakneck speed at which some of these EV startups are hurtling towards, right? It just is a bit scary, because when you're talking about a space where adoption is a key issue, things like this is like, it just doesn't set back the individual company, right? It sets back the whole ecosystem itself. So I really hope that people have put some thought into how to mitigate these risks, because it was a pretty scary video actually. And yeah, I mean, more Ola vehicles, more EV vehicles are going to be on the road, and I really hope that this was just like a one in a million sort of a situation, right? And it's not like repeatable as such. So I really hope that quality is prioritized.
Yeah, no, but Ola Electric has also released a statement that they're looking into it, and the owner of the vehicle is completely safe and sound. So in this week, the episodes that we'll be putting out include the final part of a three-part series with Jen Abel, and this week, Roshan and Jen will be talking about sales hiring, and along with that, as Roshan already mentioned, is the episode with Raj Manohar, who is the founder and CEO of Acco Connect, and I'm sure that you'll be talking more about his vision of the
Yeah.
entire industry and how to proceed.
So the final part of the Genable series is here, and we so often I think B2B startups get their sales hiring wrong, and in this segment, Jen and I talk about who to hire, when to hire, how to enable, and so on. Especially the first VP of sales, right, which is such an important position, and it's one of those positions that routinely startups get wrong, right? I mean, you can count how many startups have hired the right VP of sales in the first attempt. It's very difficult to get it right, and so yeah, must listen for every B2B SaaS person out there. A lot of good insights, and Raj, as I mentioned, very interesting space. This whole in fish and shrimp farming is not something that we hear about very often. They've just raised 8 million in debt funding. It's great, I mean, because Raj comes from the whole mobile and VAS space. He's been a technology guy. He had no background in fish and shrimp farming as such. So just a chance encounter with someone from the industry, got him hooked to solving problems for this. And he's done a ton of research. I mean, he's been to Norway, Sweden, all of these places, Finland, and really studied the ecosystem there. So very very interesting episode for sure. I mean, something that we don't often talk about. Yeah.
So that's for this week's roundup. Do keep an eye out on our social media handles on LinkedIn and Twitter to know when these episodes are out and for more exciting updates. Roshan, thanks so much for having this chat. And folks, if you haven't already, please do like, share, and subscribe this video and to the Startup Operator channel. And Roshan and I will see you again next week.
Thanks so much, guys, and don't forget to rate and review us on all of your favorite podcast platforms. It really helps others discover all of the content that we're producing. We're putting out about a couple of episodes and a roundup every week. So that's about three new episodes every week, and we've been doing it for almost a couple of years now, Gunjan.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for your support again, and do all of the great stuff that Gunjan mentioned.